Well, Matilda Raynolds, I've got some bad news for you. There is no preview on today's show, The Road to the World Tour. There's just a review, but we are going to be talking to the two winners of the first edition of the ProVelo Super League, Sophie Marr and Jack Ward. Hasn't it been a sensational 6 rounds of racing?
Oh, yeah. And I think what's been really fantastic, though, it was really down to Sophie Marr and Jack Ward, and there was that great battle on the women's side with Talia Appleton, only around 13 points in the end separating them. And then in the men's, a bit over 20 points. It was really down to the wire, which is what we wanted to see. We also got to know just so many other riders. There were so many different riders that won different stages on the crits and the time trials and the KOMs, the QOMs, the Queen stages. So I think it just really opened up Australian cycling to so many more new names, young and older, who got the opportunity, from the Lauren Bates coming up and just starting her career to the likes of Brendan Davis, who's really on the back of their career. So yeah, I think it was fantastic. There was new sponsors, new teams, and I'm really looking forward to speaking to Matt Wilson at the end of this pod as well, and just finding out from his end, did it live up to expectations? Because certainly for me, Matt, I'm not sure what I expected, but I was very proud, I guess, to play a very small part of it.
Do you track your sleep data?
I do track my sleep data. I probably wouldn't be tracking my sleep data if I was you, Matt, who had to call about 13 hours of Milan-San Remo and then call the Q Tour the very next day.
I want to know if Matt Wilson tracks his sleep data, because I want to know how he slept on Sunday night after the Q Tour was over and done with. You mentioned some of the other riders that we got to know, and there was a few under 19s in there as well. So I have a chat to Angus Calder, and we'll touch on them throughout that. But the track nationals are underway, and the winner of the SBS Women's League, Sophie Marr, she stepped straight off the road bike. She's about to step back onto the track bike. So let's cut to her now so she can go and prepare for the track nationals. Firstly, Sophie, before we talk about the track nationals, congratulations, huge win.
Thank you very much. Yeah, excited.
What was your emotional reaction when you went across the finish line? We saw you collapse, and Dan Jones didn't put the camera down. But what was going through your mind when you knew you'd sewn it up?
There wasn't much thought going on at the time. Like after the line, I don't really, sort of a blur, try to ignore the pain. And then like the moment of realizing that I've actually won the league, it was, just completely lost for words, still in awe.
Sophie, how does this sound? Sophie Marr, Liv Alula Jayco rider for 2026. What happens now? Have they reached out at all? I'm really curious as to the next sort of few steps for you.
Yeah, Matt connected me with Jean Bates now, and I do know Jean a little bit just when he used to work with us cycling through the track. So, yeah, excited making the contacts now, and really looking forward to the next steps.
Well, the next steps immediately are the Track National Championship. So how do you go from defending the leader's jersey in the ProVelo Super League to now attention all to the track?
Yeah, it's a very quick turnaround. I have the IP today, so it's going to be new being 4Ks now rather than the 3Ks that I've done the past 2 years. But yeah, I guess just try and recover as much as possible and kick back into the racing mode, or maybe never switch off the racing mode.
Yeah, what other events are you doing at the Track Nationals? I imagine you're doing all the classic endurance ones.
Yeah, I'll be doing them all. I'll be doing the elimination, the points race, the team pursuit, and the scratch race.
What are your ambitions on the track, juggling the track and the road? You've still got Los Angeles Games in mind?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's a lot of fun, the track. I still really enjoy doing it. So, like, at this moment, I'm happy to keep all doors open for all opportunities. Keep going. As long as I enjoy it, I'll keep doing the track.
And Sophie, you're still going to ride with the New Zealand team Black Magic for a stint in Europe, and it must be incredible to, particularly at the level you're at. You know, the future is never in concrete. You never really know what next year is going to hold. Incredible to know that you will be with the team next year, and if that changes anything for you on your next few steps.
No, I'll still head over with Black Magic actually on Thursday. So I come back from Track Nationals and then I jet off straight away. My poor parents don't get to see me at home very often. And then, I think it just it's nice for that reassurance that I will have something for next year now. I'll still race my heart out in Europe and get that experience and help all my other teammates where possible. But yeah, it'll be good to still, have that block of racing before, changing teams next year and doing it with, a bit more ambition, I think. Not that there won't be any this year, but yeah.
I reckon that the ambition is pretty clear. I like it. But did it have the Black Magic team set up for this year and having 2025 organised? Did that give you more peace of mind in the way you were able to ride the ProVelo Super League?
Yeah, absolutely. I was always, going to Europe was always plan A, and doing ProVelo was Australia's racing would be plan B if I won. I wasn't putting too much pressure onto it. I had other options. I knew that there was such a competitive field and, people were coming up. So I really didn't know where everyone was sitting as well after road nationals. So, yeah, I was definitely racing it race by race and seeing where I pull up and then go from there, I guess.
So have you heard from Lucy Stewart at all? You guys used to be teammates. Obviously, the current national Australian road champion, and you'll be joining her in the Liverlula Conti team.
Yeah, by the time I rolled down the hill, she was already awake, and she said, "Oh, hey, teammate," and it was really awesome.
That's so good.
Sensational. Speaking of teammates, one of the stories of the ProVelo Super League was you and Talia Appleton being first and second. Was that difficult to manage at any point?
Sure, it has its challenges, but I think we're both very mature people, and we could see that, like, we had to be proud of no matter who won. She rode so well and so proud. I'm so happy that she won the last stage as well. She won the first stage and showed consistency throughout the races, and yeah, so I'm really happy for her as well. Obviously, there's always going to be disappointment, but yeah, it could have been challenging, but I think we both faced it very well, and it didn't damage the team culture or anything.
Well, the rivalry that you had from outside the team was Ellie Anderson. And one of the best moments of the entire ProVelo Super League, from my perspective, was at the end of the last stage in the Q Tour, when she grabbed you and looked you dead in the eyes and said, "I'm so proud of you." Talk to us about Ellie Anderson.
Yeah, I lived with Ellie last year in Europe, similarly with Lucy Stewart. And yeah, we're just like so close and just so proud of her, and she rides so well all the time. And yeah, really, she means the world to me as well. So yeah, it was really sweet.
Also, we'll let you get back to a very full program. You're taking on the nationals on the track, but I think across the board, the way you handled yourself on and off the bike, I think it was the first time we had so much coverage of the riders off the bike with the cameras rolling the whole time as well. But you really showed yourself across all the disciplines on the road with the criterium wins that you took, how you performed, particularly in the Queen stage in Tassie, and of course across the time trial. You had a fantastic time trial of the weekend. So good luck in Europe. Ride safe, soak up all that you can, and we can't wait to see you in purple next year.
Thank you very much. Look forward to it.
It's been a huge couple of months, hasn't it, for Sophie Marr, and now going to the track nationals. I actually think that she's going to perform really well at the track nationals because the pressure is off in many respects. She's ticked this massive box. She can go in there without any pressure, and people say, well, she must be tired. And I think she'll ride with real freedom.
Matt, I can't implore enough how incredible that is for her to have that pressure off her for next year. Really, when you're at this level of sort of fighting your way, trying to make it to at least, even just trying to make your way to a Conti team, which Liverlula is, but it is more of a senior Conti team, particularly being a feeder team to the World Tour is just so important. And it's just such a difficult spot that so many of these riders are in when they go to Europe. It's very, very difficult to show yourself in Europe because you're usually stuck in Belgium doing very Camise-style races and you're up against the big teams. So I think for Sophie to have it secured for next year, she, as you say, she'll ride with a lot of freedom, and just try to learn more and keep trying to build that foundation, knowing that she's got next year secured. So, yeah, and I think, even just last year, though, if you look at the way she rode with Lucinda Stewart, I remember looking at a lot of their results in Europe, and she was always there and thereabouts. And you've seen what's happened with Lucy Stewart, now the current national champion, who rode with a lot of maturity at nationals this year. So, yeah, it's some fantastic nationals next year where we'll see Sophie Marr in that Liverlula Jayco Conti team.
Her and Lucy are really similar, the way they ride. They've both got a really strong track background. They're both super smart bike riders as well. They ride with a lot of bike IQ. So it's Sophie Marr who took out the Women's ProVelo Super League, which was presented by SBS, and it was fantastic to have SBS on board. You mentioned the amount of extra coverage that we had, more than we've ever had for national level racing. And it was a national event, but we had some internationals in there, and we had some athletes that we believe are going to make a big impact on the international stage. And one of them is the winner of the Summer Men's ProVelo Super League, and that is Jack Ward. Jack, congratulations on taking out the league.
Yeah, thank you. It was pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. We've got Sophie's off doing the track nationals, and you skipped the Grafton to do the mountain bike national championships. Were you ever nervous about missing a round of the ProVelo Super League and the impact that could have?
Yeah, it was kind of the plan from the start. Wasn't really planning to do Brisbane either. I was going to do Oshis, but then I was doing really well, and it kind of just nationals was a big goal. So that was always the plan. But then lucky I kind of had enough points, so it was really close going to the final round, and I could just hold off Zach.
Jack, talk to us before we go back to the road about your mountain bike ambitions and what you're hoping to not just achieve this year, but sort of in the future on the mountain bike side.
I think like a long-term goal is like Olympics, like 2028, and then obviously Brisbane in Australia 2032. But that's kind of like the long-term goals, and the short-term is just trying to get more experience racing in Europe and hopefully win some mountain bike races over there as well.
Who have been your, not necessarily heroes, but the riders that you've looked to as potential role models as a path that you could follow?
I think it's, I don't know, a bit cliche, but like Tom Pidcock or Van der Poel, how they just kind of mix it up with disciplines and seem to crush it in both. So I guess if I could do anything like them, that'd be pretty cool.
That would be really cool. And they're the sort of answers I was expecting from you. They are the perfect template. And I think that's what makes them so good in each of the disciplines that they do, because they do keep it fresh. Is, keeping that fun in it, Jack, is really important.
Yeah, for sure. I think it makes it easier. Like when you switch it up, it's almost like an off season, but you're still riding your bike. So you're still getting good training, but you're not getting like fatigued throughout the year, I guess. You're kind of fresh always for racing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Tils has asked you the question about your ambitions on the mountain bike. What are your ambitions on the road long term?
I'm not really sure. I'm not sure what sort of rider I am, but I think hopefully
a good
going World Tour and winning the best and biggest races, I guess. Yeah.
What's your favourite race to watch then?
Probably Tour de France, because it just kind of gets so invested in the riders throughout the 3 weeks, and it's pretty special.
You mentioned before you're going to Europe with mountain biking. Is that with a European team, or what does that look like? What's the next few stages, the next few months for you?
Yeah, it's trying to like sort it all out with my manager. I'm trying to work through it all, what I'm going to be doing for the rest of the year. But on the mountain bike, it'll be just with our Aussie team. Just I think there's like 6 of us or something going over. But yeah, still trying to figure out the rest of the year and what goes on there.
Is Nettie Edmondson your manager?
Yeah, she's been really good.
We'll get her on next. We'll try and work it out. Now, who's your coach?
Alex Quirk. He's just in Brisbane. He's been really good. Like I only started with him just before, maybe 6 weeks before Tour of Bright last year, and we've made some very good progress. So that's been pretty good.
And you had a pretty good sports director at Team Brennan with Tim Decker calling the shots. Coach of the Olympic Games gold medal team. And talk to us about the Brennan team, because you had a lot of riders in that team. They're in their mid-20s and they would love to be 20 and trying to get this Stagiaire contract. What was the support like coming from them?
yeah, it was pretty special. Like everyone was really committed for each other, and I think it kind of showed in how the team worked together and rode, and everything kind of seemed to go to plan almost the whole time. We were just kind of all, I guess, just like committed for each other. Like when, like for Blake at the Warnie, that was pretty special, and like obviously in Brisbane just last weekend, how they brought back the break just in time for the final climb, and then I could pull off the win. It just without them, it really wouldn't have worked.
Talk to us about your rivalry, Jack, with Zach Marriage, who also had such a consistent few rounds. He missed, to balance things out, he missed the final round or stage, I should say, at the SA Kick-It. And so was seemingly chasing the entire time through the ProVelo Super League. But whenever we looked at the results, it seemed like you wouldn't have seen much more of one, like any view from any of the stages. It was just you were looking at Zach and Zach was looking at you.
Yeah, we're always pretty close together, and we're like a very similar sort of rider as well. So it was always tight with him. But yeah, you couldn't be racing against a nicer guy. Like he's such a good rider, and it was very, very tough to beat him for sure.
It was great to see the rivalry, and what I liked about it, it was really similar to what we said about Ellie Anderson earlier on in the conversation with Sophie Marr. I thought that Zach handled himself exceptionally well because he was up against it. His team was good, but they weren't quite as strong as your team. Did you have any empathy for him being isolated so often against the Orange Army?
Yeah, for sure. Like sometimes I was like, oh, it's kind of felt a bit bad that we had such an amazing team. But I think he still had it was still good to see that they Butterfield's lifted in Grafton. That was pretty cool to see. But yeah, but Zach was just like, he was like riding like he was more than one person. It was pretty cool to watch.
Well, Jack, we eagerly await to see what the next few months. We hope we've found our Australian Tom Pidcock, both on the road and hopefully at the LA Games as well. So good luck the next few months in your decision making and what you're going to do. And we look forward to seeing where you'll pop up next. And yeah, just being a part of the Australian cycling, it's a very exciting prospect. So good luck.
Thank you.
I expected those answers about the role models with Tom Pidcock and Matthew Vanderpool, and I'm putting Tom Pidcock aside here, Tills. I'm going down the Vanderpool path. I'd like to see the performance that we saw from Vanderpool at Milan San Remo, but I think that he's quite a different style of rider to what Vanderpool is. He is a bit more like a Tom Pidcock, but the way we've seen him climb in the ProVelo Super League, the Tour de France, the high mountains, let's get super ambitious. What about the Cadel Evans role model?
Yeah, definitely. And I think, as you said there, like he's still quite fresh to the road. He doesn't really know what style of rider he wants to be as well. And that's what we forget with some of these young men and women is they're still trying to work that out. They don't really know whether the classics is going to suit them or the the stage racing the 1 week. We've seen it with the likes of Luke Platt trying to work out what type of rider he is. And he's really only just betting into, really being such a great 1 week rider and hopefully will develop into a 3 week rider as well. So, yeah, I definitely think Tom Pidcock, but he has a bit of a Jonas Vingegaard sort of style about him as well, Jack Ward, and he climbs really, really well. But we saw in those criteriums he was extremely explosive and he won. And, when we've spoken to Tim Decker, that's really where he won the tour was these bonus points throughout the criteriums. And so, I think either way, wherever he, whatever the next few months looks like, he's going to be a star of future and of Australian cycling.
Yeah, he caught me by surprise in the first criterium at Devonport in the Spirit of Tasmania cycling tour. When it was intermediate sprint, I was just double checking the results. I'm like, that looks like Jack Ward's gone across the line in first place. But yeah, he's got some serious punch. You mentioned before about some of the other riders. It's not just the winner of the SBS Women's League or the Sum Up Men's League. There was a lot to like further down the list. Angus Calder has been at all of the races. We've been covering them remotely. Angus has been on the ground. Angus, I no doubt you've enjoyed the ProVelo Super League and you're a little disappointed it's finished.
Yeah, definitely. It's bittersweet. It was a fantastic couple of months of racing, or a few months of racing with the PSL. Definitely sad to see it go. But to quote, I think the iconic Dr. Zeus, "Don't cry because it's over, smile because it happened."
I love that. My kids are now too old for me to be reading Dr. Zeus to them, but when they were young enough for me to be reading Dr. Zeus, I would get so animated in reading those books. So I love Dr. Zeus. So I'm happy that's got a reference in here. Outside of the winner of the men's and the women's, who were some of the standout performers for you?
Oh, that's a very good question. You're putting me on the spot there. I think I was really impressed overall with both the men's and the women's ARA Skip Capital teams, to be honest. Completely under 19 teams. They're up against a lot of older, stronger riders. And I was really impressed on both sides how well they rode, firstly as a unit, but also managed to get themselves right up towards the pointy end. We saw as well Emily Sanders. She was sort of chipping away throughout the league, getting a little bit better. And for them, there's so much learning potential and learning opportunity. So it was really nice to see that progression throughout the league. She ended up taking second at the South Bank Crit, which was amazing. Also in the women's league, I was really impressed with Odette Lynch, actually in the Butterfields team. Coming into that first crit, she's transitioned over from, was it rowing last couple of years, but cycling, like, it's fairly new to her. And as a sprinter, you have to learn so much so that all of your decisions become automatic, and they happen so fast. Things happen so quickly in a sprint. So I was really impressed seeing her as well learn throughout this season and start to get right up the front there.
Tills, what about the performance in the Grafton Inverell in the women's race by Tully Schweitzer, being in that leading group as an under 19? She's 17, isn't she, Tully?
Yeah, and I think for so many of them, it was such a good, particularly the younger riders, is such a high level of experience that they were able to gather. I think it's always really hard, the finish. I think we heard from Tristan Saunders how sad he was that this was over, and particularly for a couple of teams, they really just started to find their straps. They really finally got together, and they would have potentially loved another few races, but that's what where we've had before, Matt, previously in other years, we've had like multiple months between races, and it just would really stem the development. Like, you'd almost forget everything you learned, and also you'd have to come back to the team, and it'd be very haphazard about who's going well, who's not, where just having it so condensed, it really allowed this thread of a narrative of the riders, and I think just a very intensive environment for staff and riders to develop through that. But what surprised you, Angus, whether it be the riders or the tour, how the ProVelo played out in itself, your thoughts on what you thought it might be and now knowing what it was in the rearview mirror?
Yeah, look, I was very impressed overall. I think towards the end of last year, hearing about what the ProVelo Super League was hoping to do and the ambitions for it, it's very easy at that point to look at it and go, gee, that's going to be pretty hard to execute. But to see everyone and going to all of the events, seeing it in person, the way that everybody rallied around, all of the staff, everybody organizing the events was very impressive. And then in terms of surprises and things like that, I'm always surprised at how small moments can become such big things in the grand scheme of a league like this. 6 rounds, so much happens. And I always love to go back and look at what sort of small moments, sort of transformed how someone ended up in the standings, or little things here or there. Like in the women's event, for example, I think the Tour of Tasmania, the climb up to the Golden Valley was transformative, because if Sophie Marr didn't perform on that stage, I think we see a completely different outcome in the women's race, and it would change how the excuse me, it would change how the following few rounds would unfold. And so that one stage there, so much was hinging off that. And then there are a few moments as well in the men's league throughout that really transformed things. So I'm always surprised at these sort of almost sliding doors moments, just like a single performance, a single day, and how that can have a big impact over the course of a league.
That day stood out to me with the performance by Lauren Bates. I've been aware of how good she is, but I didn't think she climbed as well as she did on that day. That was a revelation to me, and shows just how high she can get in her career. She's got huge potential, lots of upside. The other element that really drew my attention was getting to see the depth of Australian cycling, and actually some of the older riders really impressed me as well. Brendan Davids, who we've spoken about, he's a machine. How he manages his whole life and rides at that level, it really is a credit to him. the way Tristan Saunders conducted himself, Gina Ricciardo as the experienced member for the Praties team. But one of the men that stood out to me that's outside the under-23s was Tynan Shannon. This is a guy who I believe is good enough to ride the World Tour if he can get the right opportunity. Thoughts?
Yeah, look, he would have to be one of the strongest guys in the peloton. And what was really wholesome to see actually was when he took his win at the Q Tour, how many people came up to him to congratulate him. And they seemed like very genuine congratulations coming across. It wasn't the sort of, yeah, mate, well done. I'm off on my way. I'm going to go back to the car now. A lot of people hung around just to talk to him about it. He seems to have a lot of support within that group, which was really nice. And I think because everyone knows how good he is, how close he's come, you look back to round 1 at the SA Kick-It where Brendan Davids got the better of him. And so much of that comes down to Brendan Davids' strength and experience, but also the team that he had there. Some of the cards he was able to play, he only had because of his team, whereas Shannon, the Royal Bikes team are pretty strong, but we've seen how impressive Brendan have been. So to see him come really close there, work his way up, obviously an incredibly strong rider, very popular win. But I would have to agree, I think he's one of the strongest guys there. And he was in pretty much every single breakaway this final round at the Q Tour.
Yeah, everybody likes him, Tills, because when he's in a breakaway, he does 80% of the work.
Yeah, and when he's not in the breakaway, he tries to drag it back.
Yes.
That we saw in the crit.
What about the South Bank Q Tour? Like, what's Tynan Shannon doing on the front? Who's he leading out? He was chasing for himself and let himself out and won the bunch sprint.
Yeah, I even went to the bike shop the next day and they were like, yeah, but what was Tynan Shannon doing? And then he just, made everyone be quiet the following stage and wrapping it all up. But I think that was also the other positive. Like, yes, we had all this focus on who was going to win even just the GC or the contracts, but we had the likes of Liam Walsh, gold medalists on the track. We had Cam Scott returning from the World Tour. Like, it was a very, very high level of racing. Or Connor Leahy, these guys they should be signing for World Tour and are looking to as well. So, yeah, I think that I think a lot of people would have come into the tour thinking, oh, yeah, I'll just race. But then very quickly going, wow, this is a huge opportunity to show myself. And I think it started so strongly in Adelaide. I wasn't sure about it being alongside the Tour Down Under, but to have the likes of Mark Cavendish on the start line and multiple director sportifs for the team, just constantly I'm going to keep my eye on this. And that's what we're hearing. We're hearing that teams are circling, multiple teams for multiple riders are circling now. And I think, gosh, if I was a rider, I'd be putting together a highlights package, which we've never been able to do before, and sending out that tape.
Yeah. So, Angus, now from here until next year in the ProVelo Super League, are you going to be tracking what the riders from this league are doing for the rest of the season and keeping across all of that, keeping me informed and Tills, keeping us up to date?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to do my best. I think everyone's going to head over, as we've heard from the two on so far, a lot of riders are going to head over to Europe, whether that's for road or mountain bike. I know a lot of riders are going over to do a big European block on the road, and I'll do my best to stay in touch with all of them. I feel like I've got to know a lot of them throughout this ProVelo Super League. But they'll go and do a lot of races, a lot of what technically would be considered club events, but they're very high-level races in Europe. And I'll do my best to follow them, contextualize those results that they're getting, the races that they're doing, because there's so much talent in Australian cycling at the moment. And I think being able to follow them in Europe and follow their journey as they move up to the World Tour would be amazing. So I'll do my best to keep everyone up to date, that's for sure.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us throughout the entire league. It's been really fun having you on the podcast. It was great to have you in commentary with us as well. And we're going to be following the updates throughout the league, Angus, or throughout the season, I should say.
Yeah, the rest of the season. And thank you for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. Such a great experience. Already looking forward to next year.
Yeah, the countdown is on. Well, Tills, it would not have been possible, the entire ProVelo Super League, without the brainchild behind it. Matt Wilson, who was an Australian road champion himself, rode the Tour de France a couple of times. And Willow, as we bring you in, we're also going to bring Dan Jones in because he's been bringing all these stories to everybody. And it's done a huge job behind the scenes. Dan, Willow, welcome to both of you.
Thanks for having us,
Thanks,
Matt.
Appreciate that, Tills.
So,
hello, Matt.
Wilson,
wow.
Sunday night. How did you sleep Sunday night?
Yeah, pretty soundly, that's for sure. It's been a massive few months, I won't lie. But yeah, look, it's it's great to get it finished, and had a big planning session on Monday morning and going through basically trying to tie off this season, but also look forward to next season and what needs to happen, and all very exciting.
Yeah, Matt Wilson, I was expecting you to be wearing a toupee. I was surprised you hadn't lost all your hair. But how has the stress been throughout the tour? And I'm really curious on what you expected and what really surprised you over the last few months.
Oh, look, I think I said it before. We kind of knew when we went into this that it was going to be a massive challenge. We had less than 12 months from the time that we got the funding to when we were launching, and in amongst that, we had to deliver 3 new events, which, as anyone knows, even doing one event's a big challenge. So we knew this was going to be a monumental task. It wasn't without its hiccups, that's for sure. Having one stage cancelled just before Harbour City GP was a big blow, and definitely a low point for us. Very, very stressful moments. But I think we got through well. We delivered a successful event nonetheless. Had a lot of learnings along the way. I think the highlights for us, the kickoff in South Australia was an amazing point, I guess, to get all that planning and work and to see it live and see it on TV was awesome. And I think the Q Tour final was also amazing. That finish up in Wamaran, which again, we had a flood event less than 2 weeks before, and we had to cancel our final stage. So that Wamaran course only came together about 10 days before. So that sort of thing's been hugely, hugely stressful. But again, I think that stage ended up one of the highlights of the whole league.
Yeah, and I've got to make a comment. You've got colour back in your face, Matty. You're actually looking really good. When I saw you Sunday morning, mate, she was grim. I don't know if it was the humidity, because I definitely don't handle the humidity that well. But I will add, as a bit of a preface, is I've known Matty for a long time now, and I really rated Matty when we had our times at Greenwich, because he was the one that put the rocket up my ass when we were on the bus one day, and he just said to me, "Look, what's the plan for the backstage today?" I think we were going to one of the classics in Belgium. I said, "Oh, what do you mean?" He goes, they're just getting a bit stale. That went down really well. I took that criticism really well. But what it did is it put me out of my comfort zone, and I knew that, like, Matty's that sort of person that he's got a vision, and he can see things that people don't normally see. And when he put his neck out there with Aaron and Jerry to do this league, it was a simple question. Like, obviously I wanted to be involved and give that support, but it was like, what is your purpose of doing this, Matty? Because, geez, that is a monumental task by putting it out there. And it was very simple. We want to give the next generation of riders the support to give them a pathway to the World Tour. And that, when you hear things like that, I think everyone connected with the league bought into that. And everything was all chips in. And I think in retrospect that giving those young riders, and as you guys said, Tills and Keenan, getting to know the characters was the highlight, And when you see even teams like Bomads, I just loved seeing particularly parents that are going all chips in to support their kids. And for those young riders, just that experience, and just getting a taste of that racing. There's so many great stories, but I think particularly from Matt, Aaron and Jerry's perspective, they really should be commended, and everyone connected with the league for what they did, putting their neck out there. It wasn't easy, but I think everyone should be really proud.
I think for me too, like, it's been really great seeing everyone's attitudes change as it went on. So there's been times where people are questioning what you're doing, why are you doing it this way, why are you doing it that way, it should be done this way. And you can deal with some quite negative feedback in the beginning, but as it was unfolding, people understanding it more, people coming along on the journey, and then the amazing feedback you got at the end from some of the teams and riders. I think, especially for the young riders coming through, and under 19s, I think are going to be the biggest beneficiaries of this season, because they get to race at a level they've never raced at before, and they get to deal with big bunches, which most of them have never dealt with before. And then they can go to Europe, and land and adapt a lot quicker to the racing over there. And I think for those under 19s in the pathway, it's going to be a huge benefit. But the reality is, with all of this, and especially some of the criteriums we were doing, there's lights and music and crowds are coming out and everyone's getting so excited. This is amazing. Why isn't this happening all year and everywhere? And the truth is that it costs a lot of money to do this. And the reality is that all of this amazing opportunity that we've got from Jerry can still go away if we don't get the support, we don't get people watching. They're the two things that we've said from the beginning. We've got to get sponsors involved and we've got to get people watching. And then the commercials will make sense. And this is something that's sustainable for Australian cycling for the future. But it's certainly something that we can't take for granted. We've got to keep the foot on the pedal, and we've just got to get more people coming out of the woodwork and getting involved.
Well, you've shown that already. You mentioned before that the Q Tour finished Sunday. Planning session was then on Monday. So there's no rest for the wicked. What's the process from here to get ready for next year and that hunt for more sponsors and getting more investment and helping the league grow?
Well, we've got a lot of benefits or a lot of advantages that we didn't have this time last year. We've got a product now. We've got content. We've got stats. We've got figures. We've built a lot of these events, so it's somewhat less laboursome doing all that side of things. The league model's built. So we've got a lot more time to dig into that sponsorship side, redo our decks and go out and speak to everyone we've spoken to before, and then find a whole bunch of new people. So it's hopefully that extra time we're going to have will bear fruit.
I've got to say my highlight, Matt, was certainly the velophone. That was just fantastic. I loved that in South Australia, the first SA kick it, that we just did it without asking and then apologise later. I love that attitude of like, we're just going to do it and then we'll work it out, how that works. That was just incredible technology. And also the GoPro footage, the drone footage was stunning, particularly in the crit from the Q Tour. All of these visuals and taking us behind the scenes, as Dan just mentioned before, you have this vision and pushing forward. But what was your highlight from across the league?
Yeah, the velophone stuff was definitely up there. Like I said, I think that first event in Adelaide, having the velophone on, being there at Vic Park, having a broadcast, seeing everyone come together and, seeing, like Jonesy said before, people like Jonesy that we've got engaged in this that have gone up and above the call of duty, and yourself, Tills, and Keno, and the list goes on. The amount of people that understood what we were trying to do and were willing to do it, work harder than anyone would have expected, and that's been a big part of the success. And yeah, we owe it to a lot of people, and that's been a real highlight, seeing everyone come together like that.
Yeah, I want to add a name to that list, Sarah Gigante. She was huge. The amount of time that she contributed to it, she was so keen to come in and be with us in commentary, Tills, and the amount that she added, I thought, to commentary, because she knows the domestic peloton way better than I do, and she came so well prepared. It was fantastic to have her part of it. Dan, what about for you? What was a content highlight for you?
Well, from a content perspective, I suppose massive shout out to Ian Gates, the Editrix crew, everyone connected with Videocraft, James Taylor and so forth. They did a mountain of work, and obviously the MVP with that was Mark Fallahy as well. We'd have a lot of people say that, geez, this has got a look and feel at times of the Tour de France, with some of those packages that were put together. I mean, that was Mark 101, and he does work with SBS for the Tour de France coverage. So, he was a real key figure in sticking all this together. But I've really enjoyed working with Turtle, to be honest. Like, Turtle, as we know.
For people who don't know who Turtle is, that's Darren Casey, and he helps put together a lot of the social content.
I love trying to pass on all the knowledge that I had over the years doing the backstage and that around content, and then seeing him evolve, and then seeing the numbers grow. Like, there was 1.3 million views on the Instagram stories and so forth in 30 days, and seeing that sort of stuff evolve. But, as we said, getting to know the riders. But if I'm truly honest, I reckon Tills is probably the highlight for me, because you've been an absolute standout. No, honestly, the amount of people that have come back and said that the commentary, we all know Keenan's a star. He gets enough love. But we all said going into it, it's all about authenticity. And I remember, Matt, you said the best advice was from Phil Liggett. What did he tell you?
You can only be yourself. You can't be anybody else.
You can only be yourself. And I think you've stayed true to that. But that is a big component of the success of the league is the broadcast and the commentary. I think you've been an absolute star. And I'm really looking forward to what you want to do with that. Like, there's no reason why you shouldn't be covering the big races because you've got that authenticity in your tone. And that, to me, is a big standout, as well as obviously all the riders and the narratives. But that's been a highlight. And Angus as well has been as a revelation. So I think seeing those people develop.
Yeah, I think it was.
Tills. I love your enthusiasm.
Oh,
it's been awesome.
Thanks, man. It's also been a great opportunity, Wilson, on I think so many opportunities away from the actual racing for people to developing in the media, developing camera, developing just all those other smaller roles in a more of a grassroots environment, but in such a professional environment. It really was, I wasn't sure about the commitment and it really was, sorry, Wilson, but when you said Matt Keenan was doing it, I jumped with that opportunity to learn from you, Keno, and you allowed me to call and, particularly the finishes and all that sort of thing. That's just something you don't usually get the opportunity for. And it's allowed us to bring in a whole new, we had, Georgie Howe and Mark O'Brien, Cyrus Monk. Like, we had so many people that we'd never usually hear from, which was a great opportunity. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how we develop that in the future as well. And gosh, there was some incredible weekends when it was just SBS was cycling. We had European cycling up against Australian cycling, which has just never happened. And so, yeah, it's blown my mind about how well it's gone.
All right, to wrap it all up, one from Dan and one from Matt. What are you proudest of from the first edition of the ProVelo Super League?
I'll start that as a whole to deliver on the promise that this was going to be different. And it was definitely different.
Yeah. Oh, look, for me getting to the finish line and having delivered 6 events and not falling on our face. And and much like Jonesy said, delivering on the promise that we set out from the beginning. I don't think out of all of the major things that we wanted to achieve out of this that we didn't tick every box. So, very proud of that.
Well, congratulations to both of you. In particular, Matt Wilson. Yeah, go, Tills.
Oh, I just want to check. Have you heard from Jerry Ryan? Has he, the Godfather, the bow down? Have you reached out to him, or has he gotten in touch on? Yeah, I think the whole country's keen to hear if, what his thoughts were.
Yeah, look, he's over the moon. I mean, he's getting so much great feedback coming back from everyone in the cycling community about it, and he's been unfortunately not able to make the events towards the end there, but he's been giving us a lot of great feedback and definitely committed for the future.
Well, he has got a bit on his plate. We'll give him that. But where would we be without Jerry Ryan? Dan, Matt, congratulations, and thanks for having me and Tills part of it.
No dramas.
Yeah, definitely.
Pleasure.
And another special mention, Tills, it would not be possible without Karen Jones and her team at KSJ Events.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the highlights for me was on the Q Tour. People wouldn't realize we got to hear Karen Jones on the race radio, which is something I hadn't experienced before. And she was fantastic. And I think she's a stalwart as well, and has given so much to Australian cycling. She kept Bay Crits going, obviously the Melbourne to Warney. She did Rattle Gravel, and now to support the ProVelo League across 6 rounds was a huge effort. So wouldn't be possible without her.
Well, Tills, that's it. The first edition of the ProVelo Super League, 6 rounds, we're done.
Yeah, thanks so much, Matt. And it's been a great few weeks of learning and development and just getting to know these riders. So many names I'd never heard of, and now they're just embedded in my mind. And I'm just really looking forward to where they go to from here and just what it's done for Australian cycling. I just say words are cheap. so many people were, saying the demise of Australian cycling and, Matt Wilson and Aaron, and then the team to inspire so many people to get behind it and do something about it. I just feel very grateful for what they've done for the future of cycling.
Oh, they really stuck their neck out. A massive step forward for Australian cycling. I'm going to be following all the riders, not just the winners, through on their potential road to the World Tour. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for watching the coverage that we've had on SBS. Tills, it's been an absolute treat. I can't wait to see you out on the road.
Yeah, I'll see you soon. I think we've got Flanders together in a few weeks, so very much looking forward to that. Not so much the hours, but our eyes go to Europe, not just in the professionals, but where all these riders are going to be as well.
Welcome to working night shift. Bye, everyone.
Thanks for joining. Bye for now.